All right, everybody. So we're going to get started right now. We have 191 people here. We have members of the media. Everybody, good afternoon. My name is Dave George. I'm the Associate Director of the Release Aging People in Prison campaign. Today, we gather to declare a state of emergency. And this state of emergency exists in New York's 52 state prisons that house 43,800 New Yorkers who are connected to hundreds of thousands of family members and loved ones and other New Yorkers across the whole state. Officially, the state prison system has confirmed that COVID-19 has entered 10 of those prisons and that 7 incarcerated people and 79 staff members have tested positive for coronavirus. Because of a seriously lacking system of transparency and community members, advocates, and attorneys have tallied through phone calls, emails, and letters that 75 people in prison actually have the virus. This is not officially confirmed by the department, but the tally that we have kept over the last 2.5 weeks. Just this morning, we've heard from multiple credible sources that an incarcerated man at Sing Sing Correctional Facility who is exhibiting serious COVID-19 symptoms has died. According to those who shared the details with advocates, the person was 58 years old and placed in isolation after showing severe symptoms of coronavirus. He died from suffocation and did not have a respirator. This is not officially confirmed by the department, but we are waiting for the department to confirm this potential tragedy. And in the meantime, we are furious and terrified, not even knowing whether this is confirmed, that it is just a matter of time before somebody dies or more people die. Just this week, the first person incarcerated in the federal prison system died of coronavirus. We demand no deaths in New York State prisons by coronavirus or any other form or fashion during this public health crisis. Today, in response to the growing crisis, we are calling, with the backing of tens of thousands of people across the state of New York and led by family members of those in prison, for the immediate release of incarcerated older people aged 50 and older and those with compromised immune systems and others who are particularly vulnerable to the virus. We are calling on Governor Cuomo to grant mass clemencies that are based on public health and real public safety. Last week, in one night, with the stroke of a pen, California Governor Gavin Newsom released 21 people through sentencing commutations, many of whom were vulnerable to coronavirus. That equals the total number of people's sentences that Governor Cuomo has commuted in his 9-year tenure as governor of the state of New York. We're also calling on the parole board to release this same population of people who are particularly vulnerable to the coronavirus. And more broadly, today, we are releasing a platform of COVID-19 community demands for New Yorkers in prison, a comprehensive plan that we call on the governor, parole board, and state prison system to adopt immediately. Please release people from prison now. Give them access to free communication to stay in touch with their loved ones. People need real living and minimum wages for the labor that they take part in. People need adequate health care, cleaning supplies, and so much more. And we as communities across the state need transparency and accountability from the state of New York. I'm going to include demands and a 2-page summary of them in the chat, and I'll also include them in the press release for any journalists who care to take a look at them and report on them. Today, we're going to be led by 6 family members of currently incarcerated people. And we're also going to hear from a public health expert, formerly incarcerated community leader, and assembly member about why the time to act is now. First up, I'm going to call Michelle Lind, who's a RAP member in New Paltz, New York, and a family member of a currently incarcerated older person. Michelle.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. My husband's name is Robert Lynn. He's incarcerated at Sullivan Correctional Facility in Fallsburg, New York. He is 73 years old. He has 37 years in He has been diagnosed with prostate cancer and underwent aggressive chemo for the entire month of February every day. My husband's not feeling well. Recently, as 2 days ago, a female officer has tested positive. Yes, she worked on his block. Am I in fear for my life? Yes. I'm begging Andrew Cuomo, please. My husband was given a ridiculous sentence for nothing. For nothing. My husband didn't murder, kidnap, rape, molest anyone, and they gave him 50 to life. My husband has maybe 5 good years left to come out here. I'm here alone in my home. I have self-isolated. This is day 20. I see no one. I am in contact with no one. I am alone. Robert needs to be here so we could sit and go through this together. Don't let my husband die. Please don't let my husband die. I just read an article from the Record Online. Andrew Cuomo was just quoted as saying, I have no plans on releasing anyone. He has no plans. So when this starts, this will be a disaster. This will be a disaster. And what do? We go pick up our family members. Or the roads will be closed and we can't pick them up. This is not fair. He quotes his father, your father would have taken care of this, Andrew. This would not be happening. My husband's clemency has been sitting on your desk since 2016. It was accepted. What the hell are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? He has surpassed what he needed to do there. He is a mentor, a teacher, a guider. For God's sake, get the paper and sign these papers.
Thank you, Michelle. We're all thinking and praying of Robert right now. And we know that he and so many more people need to come home. Next up, we're going to have Teresa Grady, who's a RAP member from Harlem in New York City and a family member of someone currently incarcerated in New York State. Teresa.
Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. He's incarcerated for attempted murder and a second-degree assault. He's looking at 40 years. He's now entering his 15th year in Green Haven. It's kind of stressful for me. And Michelle, you have my deepest. It's kind of hard, but I want for everyone to understand our family members that are elderly in these prisons, in like a peach tree glass, is that close. There's no separation for them. You know, my husband's thing is that he's scared to go to medical because he don't want to be around the people who are supposed to serve their medicines, but are not wearing gloves, not wearing masks. The food, as far as the mess hall, he's like, I'm not going down there. I'm not, because some got gloves, some don't. A lot of them don't have masks. According to him, even some of the COs are walking around uncovered. His thing is, he don't know if he can take it. I can't take it. I think I sit here on a daily basis wondering, like, what's the next move? What's the next step? Andrew Cuomo, I ask you to let them go. Look at the picture that you got sitting in the jail. where would you put these people when they get sick? You already done emptied out the A block 3, I think it's A3, whatever it may be, in Green Haven to make it a quarantine area. Come on now. Also, I've been looking at the statistics going on and the different things going on. I am in a prison's wife group, and I hear a lot of the cry of the women and the loved ones. We can't do much. I hear they also are beginning to stop packages. Well, what are y'all trying to do? Let them go, or at least look at their clemency records. Look at their parole. Understand, these are people who have underlying ailments that if you don't take care of it soon, you're going to have a lot of deaths on your hand. We won't be able to go and get their bodies. What's that mean? What you telling us? You don't think that it's going to be a lot of loved ones outside angry as hell at you and you will not get reelected? Because this ain't good. And for me, my cry is let them go. Freedom. We'll deal with it on the outside. This freedom. Because these are men and women who are most of them are incarcerated on time, long stint sentences that they don't even deserve, or they have already served half of. It's this called coma. Do your job. Step up and do your job. That's all I want to say to you. Thank you for hearing me out. I hope this makes sense to a lot of y'all, because for me, I've been in my house locked down for about 3 weeks now with my own ailments going on. But thank God it's not my breathing or nothing like that, but it's still a lot. I got a lot on my plate, and most of all, my husband is at the top of my list, because each night that I hear from him, I shake. I cry. I don't know which way to go with that, okay? He's in there. I can't touch him. I can't see him. I don't know. I can only tell you what he's telling me. I can hear in him how scared it is in there for him to be around all of this. But what can we do? Except for ask Andrew Cuomo, please let them go. And I hope the news media that's on here hear us out, and let's pass this on. Thank you for hearing me out, everyone.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Next up, we're going to have formerly incarcerated community leader and a mentor to many in New York City and beyond, the director of the Release Aging People in Prison campaign, Jose Saldana.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, great. It's really saddening that Governor Cuomo states that he has no intentions of releasing anybody. If that is so, then his intent to make New York State prisons death camps, because this is the result of his intentions. And this is while he actually leads New York State in warlike preparations for the onslaught of COVID-19. He's bringing in 30, 40,000 ventilators, thousands and thousands of ICU beds, transforming stadiums and parks into infield hospitals, all in a great effort to save the lives of New Yorkers. But our question to him is, are the 45,000 human beings in New York State prisons, are the thousands of elderly with underlying health conditions facing health crises every day of their lives for years and decades, all other people with chronic health conditions, are their lives of equal value? Are they also human beings that you can dismiss and just sentence them to death. I know Robert Lynn. Me and him traveled across New York State prisons for decades. And he is everything that Michelle says he is. And there are many just like him, not only in the men prisons, but the women prisons of New York State.
Yes.
And these human beings have actually done what no one else is capable of doing. Now, no one in the public school system. They have transformed an entire generation of younger incarcerated men and women. That is the value of their worth. They have collaborated with community-rooted organizations to help address social crisis in our communities from prison. And they've done this for the most part without any hope. And they've languished in prison for 3 and 4 decades. And these are the men and women that Governor Cuomo is condemning to die in prison. They weren't sentenced to death. Unfortunately, during the end of their sentences, perhaps the last few years to decades of their sentences, COVID-19 strikes, and this changed everything for them. And there's no preparations that'll help them. What kind of preparation is having incarcerated men and women just wipe down the bars of their cells when the second COVID infection hits their system, they are doomed to die? Death looms over them every second of the day and night. There are no preparations for them. Prisons they're in can't call out ventilators by the hundreds to help those who will be infected. They don't have ICU beds for them. All they have for them is a cold, empty cell. This is where they're going to die. And we demand that they are better human beings than that. And we demand that Governor Cuomo and all our elected leaders support this campaign to avoid catastrophic consequences of the loss of human beings who cannot be defined by the crime committed decades ago, but should be defined by who they are, who they've been for years and decades, and who those whose lives they saved. They saved more lives than any New York City police officer combined. They saved an entire generation of Black and brown youngsters. Surely that has to count for something. And we call on Governor Cuomo to do the right thing, the only humane thing to do, the only humane solution is to grant these men and women release so that they could spend at least a few years. They've earned that, spend a few years with their families, and also continue to contribute to the growth of their communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you so, so much. And thank you for reminding us. We've heard from 2 family members of currently incarcerated men. We've heard from you, a formerly incarcerated man and a leader in our communities. But thank you for also reminding us that there are 3 women prisons in New York State. And right now we're going to hear from a family member of one of those women, Lavanya Skaggs. Please. Thank you.
Okay, I just unmuted my phone. All right, my name is Lavanya Skaggs. My daughter's name is Dominique Skaggs. She's presently incarcerated at Albion Correctional Facility. We're from Long Island, where a lot of families are being impacted by this issue. My daughter has asthma, which is a concern of mine, and she should not be incarcerated because having asthma like she does and taking breathing treatments, my daughter is vulnerable to catching and dying from the coronavirus. which would leave me taking care of her 5 children. Ages, she has a son that's in 7th grade, all the way down to a toddler that's 1 year old. My daughter told me, she said, Mom, her statement to me was, Mom, I'm afraid. She said, because people are crying, because they're uninformed. She said, Mom, and I have a statement from her, she said, the main thing, Mom, is that I see nurses and I see these guards coming and going. They don't have PPE, Mom. And she said, I don't know if I'm being exposed. She said, they're up close and personal in our face. And she said, I don't know if I'm being exposed, Mom. She said, I'm afraid. She said, Mom, she said, I was due to be home in 10 days. I made a mistake. I got on the phone at Willard. She was at Willard facility. It's a treatment facility for drugs and alcohol. She got on the phone. She got a ticket. They sent her to Albion. She said, I don't know when they're going to see me, Mom. I don't know what my sentence is going to be. But she said, but damn sure didn't want to sentence to die, Mom, because I got 5 kids that I'm going to leave you who have health issues. I have health issues. She said, I'm going to leave you behind to take care of my 5 issues, my 5 kids, Mom. And she said she's afraid. She also said that when they asked, you know, what is going on? Give us some information. She said, literally, they're told nothing. They're told nothing. She said that packages are now not being delivered. She said that they're making rules every day, but they're not telling them why these rules are being made. And she said the sad thing is that there's some people that are incarcerated that have nothing. Nothing. They're getting no visits, no packages. And she said, and every day she said she's seeing, you know, more and more depression going on that's making her depressed. And with her having mental illness, post-traumatic stress disorder, she's bipolar. My daughter, talking to her every day, she's going downhill. My daughter, when she calls me, she's usually bubbly because she wants me to be happy taking care of her 5 kids. But when she's calling me now, she's calling me and it's a whisper because my daughter's depressed. And you know what she told me? She said, Mom, she said, I'm telling you right now, she said, I believe we are being doomed to die in here, Mom. But she said, because this is not getting any better. I'm asking you, Governor Cuomo, please, please, you have to do something. This is about our families. This is about our loved ones. Do something. This is your job. You want to be reelected? You do something about this. Do not doom these families to die. Do not send these people home. You have the power to do so. Send them home. That's my statement. And before I get off here, I want to thank New Hour because my daughter, they have been so inspirational and having my daughter have some kind of hope that when she gets out, that she does have somewhere to go so that she can, you know, have her treatments, that she can just be rehabilitated and she can be a citizen in society and do well with her mental illness, taking care of her children. But Governor Cuomo, I'm telling you, if something happens to my daughter or one of these people's family members on this panel, it is this on your shoulders. You have to deal with that. Shame on you. Would your father be proud of you? No, he wouldn't. My statement is over. God bless everybody.
Thank you so much, Lavanya. Thank you so, so much. Not only for representing your daughter and your family, but for representing Long Islanders who are impacted by these issues. Lavanya mentioned New Hour for Women and Children on Long Island. I just want to very, very, very quickly read off the list of organizations that is co-sponsoring today's panel. We represent thousands and thousands of New Yorkers from Long Island to Buffalo and everywhere in between. So in addition to the Release Aging People in Prison campaign and parole preparation project, I just want to acknowledge and recognize Citizen Action of New York, Center for Community Alternatives, Vocal New York, the Halt Solitary Campaign, Jim Al's Liberal Democratic Club, NYU Law School Center for Race and Equality and the Law, the Albany Social Justice Center, Capital Area Against Mass Incarceration, the New York State Prisoner Justice Network, and the Parole Preparation Project. I also just want to acknowledge the leaders of the movement who aren't recognized on this panel and who are every day fighting to bring more people home. Michelle Lewin, Kathy Boudin, Laura Whitehorn, Anthony Dixon, Mark Scholl, so many more. Next up, we're going to hear from one of our legislative champions, somebody who has been supportive of this struggle and all related struggles for as long as she's been in office. I'm going to ask Assemblymember Carmen de la Rosa, representing parts of Upper Manhattan, to please say a few words.
Thank you, George, and thank you to the Releasing Aging People in Prison campaign and the Parole Preparation Project and all the advocates that are on this call today. You know, the fear in our communities is real. People are afraid for their loved ones. That fear is twice-fold for people who have loved ones who are in prisons. I represent Upper Manhattan, a community that for years has been victim of the criminal justice system as it has worked through the Rockefeller drug reforms. And we've seen people in our communities being picked up and locked up every single day. And I come to this fight from that perspective, from watching generations of men and women who I grew up with be locked up, people who have lost their loved ones to the system. And I agreed to carry, on behalf of the advocates, the elder parole bill here in New York State, because I believe that transformation is possible. I believe in a criminal justice system that transforms people and that gives them the opportunity to be productive members of our communities. And that is why I chose to carry that bill on behalf of these advocates. And in this time of crisis, we have the privilege of being able to worry from the safety of our offices, from the safety of our homes, for those of us who have homes. And the people who have family members who are languishing in prisons don't have that privilege. Because right now, there isn't information that is flowing for loved ones. I have constituents who are calling us, asking us to check in on family members who they have not heard from. We know that there is an immense number of inmates who have pre-existing conditions, HIV, AIDS, asthma, hepatitis, cancer. And we know that these people are suffering in fear. We talk a lot about New York being the epicenter of this crisis at this moment. And faith has taught me that in moments of crisis, you think about the most vulnerable. These people who have no options of leaving, of getting up and being in quarantine and being in their homes are the most vulnerable at this time. And our state will be judged by the actions that we provide for those who are most vulnerable. We know that the clemency powers allow for people to be released right now. And we're calling on Governor Cuomo and his team that as they lead us through this crisis, to not forget the faces and the family members of those who are incarcerated right now. We're calling on Governor Cuomo to provide clemency for those people who have served the majority of their sentences, who have transformed their lives. The parole board also has a role in this, and that role needs to be not only in this time of crisis, but after the crisis. We need to make sure that we have a parole board that will interview people, that will grant people the ability to have parole based on where they are right now in their journey, based on the transformation that they have had throughout their experiences being incarcerated. And so today I joined the advocates in calling on Cuomo to please do the right thing for these families. The fear is real. We're all already hearing about the deaths that are happening. These people do not live in sanitary conditions. They do not have access to a shower. They do not have access to soap and water. They do not have access, not even to hand sanitizer that they've been forced to make during this crisis. And so we know that this COVID crisis, as much as it will affect us, it will affect people who are incarcerated twice-fold. A few weeks ago, when DOCS, the New York State Assembly and the Senate had our budget hearing, DOCS commissioner said that people who are 50 years or older are considered incarcerated in prison. And he talked about how, because of incarceration, their health has declined. If we really believe that people who are 50 years and older who are incarcerated have health conditions that have been exacerbated by this system, then we must let them go. Then we must provide parole, because that is the only way that they will be able to quarantine. That is the only way that they will be able to stop the spread of this virus. And so I stand here with these family members, amplifying their voices, amplifying their experiences, amplifying their heartache, to call on our state to act, to say that I stand with you, that I stand with your families, that I stand with the family of the constituents who have been calling us to say that their family members are dying in prison. We are not going to forget their voices. We're going to continue to stand with them. The list of demands is clear. We need to make sure that clemency is done. We need to make sure that parole interviews are granted. We need to make sure that there are plans when people are released, and that the committees that are going to decide who releases these people are committees who understand that transformation is possible. We need to make sure that as people are released, they have a place to go. We need to make sure that communication with the outside world, with their family members, is a priority. People can't live in fear without knowing what's happening to their loved ones. Only because we can't see people doesn't mean we forget about them. And so we need to make sure that communication is there. We also need to make sure that correction officers are being tested so that this disease isn't carried. We need to make sure that medical personnel who are coming into our prisons have the appropriate gear to treat and not transmit the disease to prisoners. We need to make sure that the living conditions in which these people are subjected to, if you're living in a dormitory setting, how can you quarantine? If you don't feel well, how can you quarantine? And so we need to make sure that we're advocating for these people and that they are released. I stand with all of you, and we will continue to call on Governor Cuomo to say that we are waiting and that we are expecting for New York State to lead. And the best way to lead, the best face to put forward, is the face of compassion and human dignity for those that are most vulnerable at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Assembly Member. I wanted to give you just another 30 seconds if you want to just address the media and our participants in Spanish. Thank you.
Yes, en español. Primeramente le doy la gracia a esta campaña que está abogando por personas que están encarceladas en este momento. Nosotros representamos comunidades que han sido devastadas por el sistema penal en este país. Inmigrantes que se encuentran encarcelados, personas de comunidades como la mía en el Alto Manhattan, que no tienen la posibilidad de ahora mismo saber de sus familiares, saber de las personas que están detrás de las rejas. La fe nos enseña que cuando algo está pasando, las personas más vulnerables son las personas que están encarceladas. Este es el momento para el Estado de Nueva York tomar acción contundente para asegurar que las vidas de esas personas que están encarceladas cuenten, que este virus no se lo lleve, que no haga una casualidad masiva por culpa de este virus. Sabemos que las personas que están en las cárceles no tienen acceso a cuidado médico de la manera que lo tenemos nosotros. Sabemos también que viven en una situación donde la sanidad no es prioridad. Muchas veces no tienen acceso a baños, no tienen acceso a lavarse la mano, no tienen acceso a comida saludable. Hay muchas personas que viven en el estado de Nueva York que están encarcelados, que tienen más de 50 años de edad y que son vulnerables. Además de eso, ya han tenido más de 30 años encarcelados en el sistema. Sabemos que estas personas tienen la habilidad de transformar sus vidas y que bajo esta crisis el gobernador Cuomo puede trabajar para asegurarse que haga clemencia en esos casos. Le hacemos un llamado al gobernador y a todos los colegas que este es el momento donde el estado de Nueva York se juzgue por lo que hace por lo más vulnerable. Así que estoy en solidaridad con todas esas familias que están preguntando por las personas que aman. Queremos decir que en este momento no nos vamos a olvidar de estos familiares y hacemos un llamado que todos los pedidos que ahora han puesto este equipo en manos del gobernador se escuchen, porque esa es la única manera que vamos a poder asegurar que las vidas de los encarcelados no termine en una forma trágica en este estado. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member De La Rosa. So we have just a few more speakers left, and then what we'll do is we'll take any questions that the media has. Any members of the media, if you want to start to compile any questions that you have in the Q&A chat, that would be great. I see that some of the participants have written in the chat, either asking questions or asking to speak. Just because this is a virtual press conference and we've only allowed an hour, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to open it up to participants to speak or to ask questions. I'm truly sorry about that. But I personally will put my contact information in the chat at the end. And I'm happy to get any questions directly from folks, and then obviously refer people wherever they might need support, resources, or anything else. So next up, I would like to invite Amanda Lugo, who is another family member of someone who is incarcerated.
Hello. Let me know if my mic stops working or if the service cuts off. So I'm a member of Osborne's Speaking Bureau and the New York Initiative for Children of Incarcerated Parents. My father, Ken, is currently incarcerated at Hale Creek, and he's scheduled for work release in 6 weeks. So it's not just visiting that's been halted. There's also all programming and recreation. So that's been suspended, and everyone is pretty anxious and scared about it. I was just thinking about what Jose Saldana just said about prisons being death camps if there were to be a serious outbreak or if it were to get any worse. And that really scared me and had me thinking about that for the past 20 minutes or so. So I'm still a little lost for words at this moment. But right now, everyone in my family, my father included, is extremely anxious. There are extremely close quarters there. Or you guys were saying before, you can't just give them spray bottles of bleach, tell them to wipe things down and expect things to be okay, especially after you've been saying, everyone, about how the CEOs don't seem to be taking the necessary precautions, or their health isn't the priority, and it's never really been the priority in prisons. That's definitely not the population that you would think of. That's commonly like also was saying, when you think of people being vulnerable, people don't like thinking about it like that. I think Cuomo's scared that of showing their vulnerability, and as opposed to fear mongering, and it's really scary. So he's scheduled to come out in 6 weeks, but we're scared because if there's no programming, are they going to say you haven't finished your program so you can't leave anymore? If people aren't going to work anymore, can he be put on work release? There are things like that that are regular release is going to be canceled. Are these clemencies, are they not going to happen? It's really scary. My father's 53, and him being older, he's been incarcerated for a little over a year now. Him being elderly has always been a consolation for me. Maybe, he'll be less likely to be, engaged in all the violence that happens in prisons, or less targeted. But now it's almost the opposite. He's been working so hard, going to school, taking classes, doing his programming just to get out as fast as he can. And now that he's 6 weeks away, all this is happening, and all this uncertainty and all this anxiety. It's really, really scary. And I really just want him to come home. I want him to be safe. I just want to echo everyone's words that have been said so far. They scared me even more, honestly, to be really quite honest. So I'm kind of lost here. But I'm just one of 80,000 children of incarcerated parents in this whole state, in New York State, just the state, not the whole country, which is also, everything is just scarier and scarier. But I'm just one of 80,000, just trying to raise a voice for all of these kids, to call on Cuomo to please let them go, please provide clemency, and take the steps that need to be taken to ensure everyone's safety and health. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. We're going to hear from two more family members and community leaders, and then one last person before we wrap and take any questions. So I'd like to introduce now Karan Benson, who is an artist and a filmmaker, and also the son of a currently incarcerated person.
Hi, everybody. My name is Karan Benson, like you heard. I'm a graduate of the Osborne's youth programs and a filmmaker for the Echoes of Incarceration project. So my father has been incarcerated since I was 3 months. I'm 27 now. I did not figure that out, where he was until I was 10, and I didn't think much of it at the time. Fast forward, I met my father at the age of 14, and I built a relationship with him behind prison walls. He has been nothing but a role model and has showed me the right path to pursue in this crazy thing we call life. My father has obtained his bachelor's and master's degrees while in prison. He has also volunteered and graduated from numerous programs inside. Now, to me, that sounds like someone who chose to do and be better as a person while serving his 25-year sentence. My father was granted parole recently in 2017 and has a set date. He had a set date to come out in 2017 until his parole decision was reversed because of a mistake in the system. Now, my father did not give up until this day is still fighting to come home. He has been waiting on a decision on his appeal, and that was scheduled for last week. And obviously, because of COVID-19, it has been pushed back. At least to my point in saying there's thousands of incarcerated individuals inside that need to come home and reunite with their families, especially all the loved ones inside that have taken responsibilities for their actions and did what they needed to do inside to be a better person for the community. What better time to have our loved ones come home now? This virus is swarming the world, and I think it's fair to release them during these unfortunate times. So we're just calling out to Governor Cuomo, just release our family members. That's all we're asking for. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karan. I see that some of the questions in the question box are filling in from press. Thank you all. We'll get to those after our last speaker. Next, I'm going to actually ask Dr. Robert Cohen, who is a commissioner with the New York City Board of Correction and a corrections and public health expert, to speak before our last speaker. Thank you, Bobby. You need to unmute, Dr. Cohen. Sorry, we can't hear you. You need to unmute if you could.
Thank you, David, and thank all of you for your participation in this conference today. It's extremely moving, extremely disturbing, so much to be done. No one should die in prison. No one should die in prison when it can be easily prevented. There are 45,000 people in the New York State prisons. They live in crowded and unsanitary conditions, and every day DOCCS staff come into the prisons. Some of them are infected. Each day it is likely that more of them will be infected, and we know that the virus will infect people living in the prisons. The New York State Department of Health Commissioner Dr. Zucker and the New York City Department of Health and Mental Health both recognize that persons over 50 are at high risk of severe illness so severe that they are at great risk for dying. They must be sent home, people over 50. New York State DOH Commissioner Zucker and New York City's Department of Mental Health both recognize that persons with serious underlying cardiac diseases, respiratory diseases, and immunocompromised persons are at increased risk for dying from this infection. And if they are not released, dying in prison, they must be sent home to their families and friends. The rate of spread in the New York City jails where I have access to data has been frightening, and it is continuing, and the virus comes from outside the jail and spreads inside the jail. This rapid spread has not yet occurred in the state prisons, but it will if the governor, acting Commissioner Annucci, and Health Commissioner Zucker fail to act immediately. Doing nothing will mean that thousands of persons in prison in New York prisons will become infected and many will die. New York City and the governor together have released approximately 12% of the persons locked up in New York City's jails. The governor and the chief judge in New York must do so much more in the state. There's no time to debate this issue. There's only time to act. No one should die in prison. The governor can take immediate action. He should release persons who are old and who are sick because they cannot protect themselves. Only he can protect them. He must let them out so they can go home and shelter in place with their families. Only he can open the doors to protect these tens of thousands of men who are locked in his prisons and will become infected by the persons who come into the prison each day. Every day, the governor should report, this is very important, the governor should report comprehensively on the scope and growth of the epidemic in each New York State prison. He should tell everyone living and working in the prisons what is actually happening in each facility and what they can and must do to protect themselves. The governor speaks to all of us outside daily. He must also speak daily to those living and working inside. The governor talks every day about unimaginable things. Preventing the deaths of hundreds and thousands in New York's prisons should not be imagined. It can be prevented. It must be prevented. We can talk about mechanisms, parole, clemency, pardons, but the time is very limited. New York City delayed release for more than a week until they began to act. There is no time to wait in New York State prisons. No one should die in prison. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing words. Corrections, health, and public health experts are clear, whether it's Dr. Cohen in New York City or Dr. Briley Williams in California or other medical doctors and health experts across the country, they are clear that correctional environments, be in prisons, jails, detention facilities, or otherwise, are hotbeds for this virus. They have poor ventilation, their social distancing is impossible, medical care is substandard and in some instances non-existent. The only way that we can truly and comprehensively tackle this virus, according to the experts in fields of medicine and public health, is to release people. And we ask that the governor listen to these health experts just like he's listening to the medical commissioner of New York State and to Dr. Fauci more nationally. So finally, before we take any questions, and during the course of the questions, I will copy and paste our full list of emergency demands and recommendations into this chat. We're going to hear finally from a member of the Release Aging People in Prison campaign, the Western New York organizer of our campaign, who's based in Buffalo and whose daughter is incarcerated at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, Donna Robinson. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to get real emotional. I'm just going to put it out there right now. In Western New York, we have over 7,000 of our citizens who are incarcerated in the state of New York. As David elicited to, my daughter is incarcerated at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, which is almost 500 miles away from where I am. My daughter is in her 40s, 44 years old. She's got 4 children. So I know what you're talking about, Ms. Skaggs, when you talk about your daughter in Albion. I'm the sole caregiver for her oldest son, who is mentally challenged and autistic. God forbid something happens to me, because I'm at the age where I'm collecting full Social Security benefits. I have sarcoidosis, I'm diabetic. I could leave at any moment if I come in contact with this virus, because this virus is deadly. Who's gonna care for him? Who's gonna care for her grandchildren? Nobody. I'm asking you. No, I'm not asking you, because I've been asking you. I've gone to the Capitol building every occasion that I've got. I've stood on those $1 million staircases and I've yelled at the top of my lungs for you to hear my cry and the cry of others who have loved ones who are locked behind bars. And yet you say that this is not an issue and you don't plan to do anything. Well, let me just tell you, that's not a good look for you. This is about compassion. And if you know anything about the English language, compassion is pity or concern. The concern for other people who are suffering. And they're suffering behind bars and we're suffering out here advocating for them. Because if I don't hear from my daughter, I don't know how she's doing. And yes, we try and laugh and joke because that's what we do. We laugh to keep from crying. Laughter is the best medicine. But after a while, this is not going to be funny. It's not funny now. When you tell me that people are dying and the ones who are sick, you're putting them in solitary confinement. Solitary confinement should be abolished. I'm already on the platform to eradicate solitary confinement. Look at the case of Khalif Browder, When I go to Albany and I see his family showing up and his brother speaking out about the tragedy of what happened to that young man, how can you not care? Let me find out that you don't care about us for real. And this is really how you're feeling. Because we are not going to stop. There's strength in numbers. And this is not punishment. What you're doing to these people behind bars, to our loved ones, is a paradigm of perpetual punishment. Everybody is redeemable, worthy of a second chance. We've all done things. Some of us have been fortunate enough not to have gotten caught, and the ones that have, if they are remorseful, if they are rehabilitating themselves, because we know prison is not a place for rehabilitation, you don't encourage that. It is a warehouse for slaves, and you're not going to keep using our loved ones to produce products that they can't even use. I can't visit my daughter. We need contact. When I went to visit her the last time in February, I'm worried about the guards. 95% of the guards at Bedford Hills are decent people. I kind of look forward to seeing them. They ask me how I'm doing. Enjoy your visit. With my daughter. We sit in that visiting room. There's no soap in either the bathroom when you first come in the reception area or the visiting room. The hand sanitizer dispensers are empty. How ludicrous is that when you're in a visiting room with other people, you're touching the table, you're touching each other, you're touching the games that you play, you're touching the vending machines. They can't self-contain themselves. This isolation of what we call stay at home, it's not an option. Bring our loved ones home. Let us care for them, because clearly you don't give a flying fig about them. And if you don't care about us, when it comes time for you to run for anything, I don't care if you're running in a marathon, I'm not gonna be on your side. Your mother is the age of my mother. My mother's at home worrying herself to death about her grandchild. I can't sleep. I'm online, I'm on Zoom meetings. Bail reform. Don't you dare roll back bail reform, because if this would have been in place, half of these people wouldn't be behind bars now. Clemency coast to coast, not just in New York State. I was born and raised in New Jersey. They're on top of it. They're letting people go. What's wrong with you? This is supposed to be the Empire State. Act like it is. Let my people go. We can't wait. Tomorrow's too late. It wasn't an issue last week. Oh, yes, it was. Because you're not being transparent with us. You're not telling us what's happening. We have to sit up here and find out. Going through the back doors. People whispering about, oh, yeah, we're going to do this and that. No. You have to do something, and you have to do something now. You got that big ship that pulled up in New York? Use it. Let them go. Let them go now. Because if you don't, I'm going to tell you pure, plain, and simple what's going to happen. If you think that what happened in Attica can happen again, oh my goodness, I don't know where you get your marijuana from, but no, this is real. You got different people together, oppression on top of oppression. They are going to rise up, and it's not going to be pretty. I've asked you. Now we are demanding you. I got the boxing gloves on. I'm not giving up. I'm going to fight with the last breath that I have, because they are not going to die behind bars like you let Valerie Gator die.
Thank you so much, Donna. Now I'm going to paste the demands of our community into the chat box. First, I'm going to paste the full list of demands. All participants and members of the media and panelists will get these. Here is a 2-page summary of the demands. I want to thank all the panelists for speaking I want to acknowledge, especially for the 6 family members who spoke today, we should never have had this press conference in the first place. All of your loved ones should have been home even before this virus struck. It shouldn't have to take a crisis and death, perhaps death en masse, for us to have the governor to act. But he needs to act now before it's too late. Mass incarceration is in and of itself a public health crisis that is going to be an absolute catastrophe if we continue to allow this public health crisis to compound it. I want to just also acknowledge that we need to be defining criminal justice not based on traditional standard criminological or criminal justice definitions in this moment. We need to be defining it based on public health and community health. We know that crime happens and it's tragic. We know that violence happens and it's tragic. We know that people and families and entire communities are hurt by both. But we also know that locking people up forever and allowing a horrendous, awful virus to cause further punishment to the punishment that otherwise just is prison is not the solution for crime and violence. Releasing people, restoring people and families and communities, creating real systems of accountability and support in the community, that's how we are supposed to respond. So with that, we're going to start taking just a few questions from the media. For the media also who's listening in, we will have, within an hour of this press conference ending, we will have a recording that we will include in the press release that I will email to everybody. We've gotten a couple of questions about whether or not we can provide additional information on the incarcerated person at Sing Sing Correctional Facility who has died, who prior to dying exhibited coronavirus symptoms. What we can say is that the man, as far as we know, died today, that he was exhibiting serious trouble breathing and other respiratory systems associated with coronavirus, that he died because he couldn't breathe and wasn't given access to a respirator. We've heard this from at least 2 credible sources at Sing Sing Correctional Facility, and we encourage members of the media to demand answers just like we are. Because the truth is that the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision couldn't be less transparent in this moment. They need to issue daily reports on what is happening in all 52 New York State prisons. They need to let us know who's tested positive and how many and where, who has been quarantined or isolated and where, how many people, if any, have died, and that includes staff. We do not have the information that we need. We're providing the media and the public with all the information that we can. Beginning tomorrow, we will start daily press briefings that we will provide in daily media advisories with 1- and 2-page reports of what we know and are hearing about in the prison system, because right now the department isn't doing so. We have a question here about the statistics that I mentioned in the beginning. I think the person, Emma Ryan, is referring to our community tally of how many people have tested positive for COVID-19 through countless hours of phone calls, emails, letters, contact with people in prison and other sources in the prison system, through attorneys' clients, through many, many people, literally many dozens of people. We have created a tally that we can keep for ourselves and for communities to provide to us, because Docs has not provided it to us. And again, we ask them to provide more information. It looks like perhaps as a result of this press conference, we see in the chat that someone has said that Docs just confirmed that there are now 14 positive tests of incarcerated people and 60 incarcerated people have been tested. We need more of this information, and we need it far more frequently. I'm just reading through the questions. Again, because it's come up again in the questionnaire box or the question box, we will provide a recording of this video for everybody to have. Samantha Ponce de Leon asks, and by the way, my name is Dave George, the Associate Director of the Release Aging People in Prison campaign, not Doug, but a four-letter D name, so no harm. It was mentioned earlier that Governor Cuomo just recently denied release to elderly people in prison. Is that true? As of when? Since the outbreak of the coronavirus in New York State, the governor has neither released nor denied release for the more than 10,000 older New Yorkers in the state prison system. In the last week and a half, Capitol reporters from the Capitol Press Room and the Albany Times Union have asked the governor on the record if he would grant clemency to older people in prison and others vulnerable to the virus. He has simply said that they are looking into it and considering it, but has made no mention of specific or concrete plans, and again has neither affirmatively released or denied anyone. I'm just scrolling through these questions one more time. I'll combine two questions in one, and then I think we've answered all of them. The first is, do we know that the PBA, referring to the Police Benevolent Association, is behind this hold on letting people go in New York? And the second is, why is liberal New York State so out of line with the rest of the country? I will just quickly comment with regard to the PBA. As of late, and folks should correct me if I'm wrong in the chat box, we haven't heard the PBA publicly or officially resisting the release of people from prison. I think it's different on the local jail level and different with regard to arrest that has potentially been a little deterred in the wake of coronavirus. Historically, the PBA, though, as many people know, has resisted the release of people from prison. Why is New York State out of line with the rest of the country? I would ask members of the media and others to pose that question to the Cuomo administration, to the state prison system, and to the state parole board. I'm going to answer this one last question, and then any members of the media or anybody in the public who has any additional questions, also anybody in the public or in the community who needs support can reach out to me directly, and if I can't assist you, then I'm happy to refer you to somebody else. There's this one last question from Ratna, which is, I'm wondering if inmates are getting sick. Are they being denied to go to the hospital? I would appreciate if Jose and Donna and maybe others weigh in here, but my quick answer is that people are going into a combination of areas in the state prison system when they either are exposed or expressing symptoms of the virus. One is in the prison infirmary, which each prison has. It's typically a small, very congested and pretty inadequate in terms of healthcare standards facility. We've also heard reports of entire cell blocks being cleared out, people being moved out of them, and those cell blocks becoming cell blocks just for quarantined people, either people who have tested positive or people who are showing symptoms. And we've also heard reports, most concerningly, that people are being placed in solitary confinement in special housing units, which, as we know, and as Donna mentioned before, not only in a public health crisis, but even more generally amounts to torture. So I don't know if Jose or Donna or anyone else wants to quickly respond before we wrap.
Yes, I just got an email from Comstock that an entire company of 50 cells was cleared out. So I'm assuming that that's going to be to house people with either have been tested or show symptoms. But that is clearly not a ICU environment.
Thank you, Jose. And for those who don't know, Comstock refers to Great Meadow Correctional Facility, which is in Comstock, New York, the same facility where incarcerated people are being forced to make hand sanitizer for the rest of the state. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I especially want to thank the family members who joined us today and participated in this panel. I want to acknowledge, and I want everybody else to acknowledge and uplift how deeply brutal and awful this is, especially for family members, to have to lay one's trauma on the line and their loved one's trauma on the line in the context of a complete and utter public health crisis and potential catastrophe is no small feat. It requires an incredible amount of bravery and also love. And that's what we're here for today. We love people in prison. All of us are connected to them. Our state is impacted by this whole system, and we need Governor Cuomo to act. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And again, I'm going to put my email in the chat box, and anybody who would like to, for questions for media purposes or other supports, can email me directly. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody have a good day.